I guard the holy films!
Wacky, says Packy, one of these days. Bang, zoom, to the moon. The plan should work, but Shaggy fucks it up by turning it on at the motor and not the battery. Choosing Captain Caveman, a goddamn powerhouse, to take on a tiger is a good strategy. Ha! You fool! You fell for one of the classic wonders, the most famous of which is never get involved in a land war in Asia. But only slightly less well known is this. Never make a Saturday morning cartoon without a toy line to sell. You only want cartoons that exist to sell toys? Well, they were essential to Saturday morning. So, toy-based cartoons. So many choices there. What should we do?
The logical starting point is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
I've never heard of it.
What? Wasn't He-Man your royal guard?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, Nick is right. About starting with He-Man anyway. Not that other thing. The episode opens with a recap of He-Man's origin. It out and out states that Cringer / Battlecat was He-Man's sidekick and knew everything from day one. Normally I don't comment on the opening credits, but in this case, it feels sort of redundant. This episode is Cringer / Battlecat's origin in depth. Let's see if you can spot the problem. Our story begins with Orko in the lab. Men-at-Arms, Teela, and Prince Adam catch him, well, it looks like he's cooking meth. He claims it's nothing. They call bullshit. Then he explains that he was trying to make a capture beam for Teela as a surprise. Man-at-Arms looks at him and says, according to this, all you needed was tar and you'd have synthetic kryptonite. The grown-ups explain that the lab is not a playroom. He should never be there unsupervised, and under no circumstances should he ever mix his magic into an experiment. Then they run off to do Royal Council stuff, leaving him there to clean up by himself. On the way to the meeting, Man-at-Arms says, I've been reorganizing the lab, so Orko had better not do anything stupid. Prince Adam says, Orko would never do anything like that. Your Highness? Orko has given up on the whole capture beam idea. Now he wants to make Cringer brave like Battlecat. So he takes some metallic sodium, some H2O, and adds a little hocus pocus. Presto! No more scaredy cat. In a way, that's true. Cringer runs away. Orko uses his magic to glue Cringer's feet to the ground. Then he proceeds to finish his formula. After all, he needs to add some Smurfberry juice to his concoction. The castle rumbles. Adam and Man-at-Arms race back to the workshop. The formula spits out a demon. Man-at-Arms gets out his trusty Holy Mountain Dew sprayer. The demon goes away, but the formula turns into Crystal Pepsi. If you ask me, they'd be better off with the demon. Man-at-Arms scolds Orko for tampering with the laws of nature. Orko says, I was only trying to help. Man-at-Arms tells him to shut the f up. Orko explains, Cringer would be much better if he was brave, like Battlecat. Man-at-Arms says that Cringer is already brave. Here's a story that I bet you and the audience don't already know. That's right, most of this episode is a flashback, which means it's free of things like consequences or dramatic stakes. Many years ago, Man-at-Arms invented a digital bird caller. Only it didn't just imitate bird sounds, it could imitate the noises of any animal. Come on, pick any animal at all. Yeah, it can make the appropriate sound. Though I don't know why you'd want to, you sick f***. Man-at-Arms sends Adam out to test it. He spots a deer and...
Holy fish, he's the guy that shot Bambi's mom.
No! Like any good scientist, he logs it. He adjusts the machine to make a deer noise. He blows into it. Then he writes down how the deer reacts. Then he wanders around for a bit. He's about to be attacked by a hungry saber cat when he remembers the only thing they're afraid of is a manticore. So he dials one up on the gizmo.
Not in this one, not in this one, not in this one.
It worked, but the saber cat leaves behind an injured kitten. Its mama is miles away and he's gonna starve if he doesn't get some food soon. So Adam does exactly what you're supposed to do when you find the cub of a species that will maul you without even trying. He picks it up and gives it first aid. Then he takes it back to Man-at-Arms and makes him play vet. He says its mom has abandoned it, but leaves out the whole I'm responsible for the said abandonment thing. A few weeks later, the kitten is all healed up, and I know what you're thinking. It's time to start singing Born free as the wind blows. But nope. Adam's friends come over and the kitten gets scared. He climbs on him for comfort. They mock the cat for being a cringer, and they bully Adam for taking care of him. Dude, he's got a fucking pet mountain lion. If I weren't agoraphobic, I'd think that's kind of awesome and not the kind of thing I would mock someone for. Instead, I find it terrifying. I mean, a kitten can eat a grown man whole. Imagine what Cringer could do. In sort of a dick move, Adam decides that if the bullies are going to call his cat Cringer, that should be his name. The sorceress shows up. She greets them both. She says that Cringer is important to Adam's future, so don't repatriate him to the wild. Flash forward to the future, we see that Cringer hasn't changed much. You know the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb? Well, I tried writing the He-Man version, but I got stuck at Prince Adam had a little cat whose fur was green as snot. Prince Adam tells Orko that Cringer was the only one he was worried about finding out about the whole He-Man thing. See, I told you that bit from before was going to become a problem later. Orko complains, what am I supposed to learn from all this? It's got all to do with me in the lab. Man-at-Arms says let him finish his story. It'll all make sense. Flashback to some archaeologists reporting to King Randor about their dig into the Khan jungle. Oh great, they're gonna wake up some ancient weapon from a lost civilization. They're gonna have their first meeting with the Ferengi and all the red shirts are gonna die. No, wait, that was the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, The Last Outpost. Sorry, my mistake. They found some buildings that are 100,000 years old and part of Eternia's lost history. King Randor gives them everything they'll need to investigate, a full budget and everything. Superpowers and magic? That I will buy, but a leader who cares about science for the sake of science? That's pure fantasy. They send Man-at-Arms who brings Prince Adam for some reason. Cringer isn't supposed to come along, but where Adam goes, he goes. Tila laughs at the idea, but Adam says he'll look after him. If this was the kind of show with an overly preachy moral at the end, it would turn out that Cringer looked after them. One of the buildings is a little strange. Every other spot on the dig shows some signs that it was once inhabited. That spot, nada. Man-at-Arms takes a look at the writing on the buildings on a scroll. He can't read it. And languages are sort of his thing. Well, that and kicking ass. And he can kick ass in any language. Translating the dialect could take hours, so Tila and Prince Adam decide to go off exploring. They go to the creepy building and find more of that strange writing. So they decide to go get Man-at-Arms. He doesn't want to examine them at nightfall. It can wait till morning. Tila and Adam go back. Tila pokes the ruins with the Sword of Power and finds a crack. Gas leaks out. Cringer freaks. Adam says, "Calm down. It's nothing." No sooner do they turn around when the ruins start to glow, revealing a hidden monster. Flash forward to the lab. Man-at-Arms says, "I tried to warn them, but they're stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!" Once we're back on commercial, it's flashback time. Man-at-Arms is trying to read an ancient QR code. He says it's similar to a language he already knows. Prince Adam says they look the same to me. Man-at-Arms says no, but I know that sign means evil. So if I had to take a guess, I think that means that building is a prison. Don't go in there, numbnuts. Tila, Man-at-Arms, Ram Man, and Adam go back. Ram Man says, "You said the door had a crack, not that it was smashed open." Man-at-Arms says, "Yeah, I guess we'll have to go busting in there." Adam says, "Wait, weren't you just telling us not to be reckless?" The crew go in with laser drills, blow the walls, and release this gargoyle. A zillion miles away, Sorceress senses this. She says that can't be good and turns into an eagle to join the battle. Meanwhile, Tila tries her ice ray on it. And nothing. Man-at-Arms orders a retreat. Tila tells the soldiers to try all of their freeze rays on it at once. And butt kiss. So she tries to retreat, but she trips. Yeah, she's a girl in an 80s cartoon. She needs to be rescued. Hey, don't look at me. I don't make the rules. I just make snarky comments about them. Ram Man tries to jump in and save her, but since he's not the main character, he gets deflected. Prince Adam sneaks off and shouts, "Captain Caveman!" to gain superpowers. The only problem is, Cringer sees it. Adam assures him it's just him. The sword glows more than usual and zaps Cringer, turning him into Battle Cat. Adam is like, "What the fuck?" Then he remembers what Sorceress said. He sees the harness on Battle Cat and mounts him like a horse before charging off to join the fight. Sorceress says He-Man will have to use his strength and skills. The monster can't be harmed, but it can be locked up again. Sorceress explains the new plan to Man-at-Arms. If they can lure the monster into the prison, they can bury it. Filmation traces some old tree-swinging animation from an episode of Tarzan onto He-Man so he can distract the gargoyle. Cringer trips it with a rope. They charge back to the ruins, making sure the creature is following them. Tila doesn't want to set off the explosives because He-Man and Battle Cat could become trapped, but the creature turns around and starts coming out first. Man-at-Arms is forced to plunge the knob, knowing what it could cost them. The explosives go off. When the dust clears, He-Man and Battle-Cat crawl out of the ruins. Man-at-Arms wants to know where Battle-Cat came from, but He-Man plays coy. Flash forward to the present. Man-at-Arms tells Orko that if Adam and Teela had just listened to the grown-ups, all those people would not have been in trouble and all that historical data would not have been lost. Orko says he's learned his lesson about listening to grown-ups. You'd think that would tie into the big moral at the end, but no. Man-at-Arms and Orko come on and say, today, Orko screwed around with his chemistry set and released a demon. So if you see this skull and crossbones symbol, you know it's poison and don't drink it, kids.
Yes!
So, what's next?
G.I. Joe.
Nah, the only DVDs I could get cheap was the 2010 Renegade series. How about Glow Friends? I prefer Thundercats. No way! Nerf! Nerf!
Well, it's obvious you guys are just gonna name 80s cartoons unless I pick something. So we're doing Transformers.
Which episode?
The Girl Who Loved Powerglide.
Ooh, boy. Our story begins with business guys at this carnival in the big city. They complain about having to be at this teenager's party. The birthday girl shows up and says she doesn't like the fact that nobody, especially members of the board, are having any fun. I blame the lack of strippers and blow. Astoria wants excitement. These 3 planes fly up her head. Alas, these are Cybertronian party crashers and not the good kind. But the Decepticons are still better than clowns making balloon animals. Powerglide shows up. He sees what's going on and calls for backup. He thinks the Decepticons are after the company's new power source or one of their top scientists. But no, they're trying to abduct Astoria. He flies in to save her. She wants to thank her rescuer, but finds the plane she just boarded has no pilot. She takes the controls but finds they won't respond properly. Either that or I was her flight instructor. But the Decepticons start blasting the hell out of everything. They blow up so much of the city you'd think it was a Michael Bay movie. What? Too soon? Powerglide starts complaining about her piloting. He takes control back. She wants to know where he is. He starts flying the hell out of there. Once he gets to safety, he ejects her and turns into a robot. Then she gets it. She really gets it. Sorta. Not really. Powerglide wants to know what the Decepticons were up to so he can stop them. Astoria says her father died recently and she inherited the company, but he can shut up because she wants to go flying again. Powerglide says, oh, I'll take you flying all right. Bang! Zoom! Right to the moon! And she's like, what did I do? What did I do? They get to a safe house. Powerglide calls Optimus. Prime says Astoria is head of the company but doesn't have access to the science stuff. He thinks the Decepticons were planning to hold her ransom in exchange for info. Back in the cargo bay, Spike starts hitting on Astoria, but she's only got eyes for someone who's, a bit taller with, a much larger cockpit. I gotta ask, was this episode the inspiration for Transformers Kiss Players? Between Spike being distracted and Astoria's own ineptitude with machines, it leads to a small series of accidents that almost destroys the equipment. Powerglide comes in and says, yeah, now I can see why you were kicked out of your own company's labs. I have to admit, they've got a bit of a cute banter going. But Powerglide only wants to do his job and get her to Optimus. But Astoria is hungry. At Decepticon Lair, Larry, Curly, and Moe are being berated by Megatron for screwing up. Megatron proves his sanity by sending the same 3 goons out there and expecting a different result. Powerglide and Astoria are at the park finishing lunch. She says she wants to ride the merry-go-round. Seeing a 30-foot-tall robot ride a plexiglass horse is kind of hilarious, but he says they've got to get going. She refuses. He picks her up and starts dragging her back to Autobot Mountain. She struggles and almost escapes until Powerglide reaches for her necklace. She tells him to stop because she promised her father she would never take it off. And of course, that's when the Decepticons attack. Powerglide tells her to run. They split up, which would be a good idea if there weren't 3 Decepticons. Lucky for them, bad guys are dumb. They decide to enter into 3-on-1 combat with Powerglide. Lots of things get destroyed. Trash cans, the carousel. Powerglide even manages to destroy a soda machine which sprays them, which means he somehow vaporized the cans without evaporating the liquid inside. I bet that trick would fool Penn and Teller. Powerglide grabs Astoria and flees the Decepticons' attack. One of them doesn't even bother shooting him. He just rams him. Powerglide makes an emergency landing and calls for backup, including a repair crew. Seeing that he's hurt, Astoria tries to make him a bandage from her dress. He tells her to stop being stupid. She tells him to let someone else be kind to him for a change. He rolls his digital eyes in acquiescence, and they're about to have a romantic moment when the Decepticons come back. Instead of fighting fair, the Decepticons trigger cave-ins that bury Powerglide. Then they abduct Astoria. Powerglide digs his way out. He tries turning into plane mode, but collapses. Wheeljack and the other medics show up. He tells them about Astoria. They say you can go after her once we get you patched up. Back at Autobot headquarters, Powerglide complains that in all the time he was out, nobody tried to rescue her. He gets up from the table and asks, "Can I fly?" The doc says, "Yes." Then he says, "Consider me discharged against medical advice." Powerglide goes to talk to Optimus Prime. He asks if the Decepticons have asked for the ransom. Prime says, "Nope, maybe they want something she's got." Casey Kasem says, "I'm detecting atmospheric disturbances." And now, back to the countdown. Prime says it's probably from some suborbital station. Powerglide says, "Great, I'll go trash it." One of the goons tells Megatron that the MacGuffin is working. He says, soon they'll be able to use Earth's magnetic field to make endless energon. Astoria is hungry. Megatron says, "Tell me what I want to know. I've got a friend who can turn into a Taco Bell." Astoria insists that she doesn't know anything about any science stuff. Megatron says, "Before he died, your father must have told you something important." She says, "Well, when I was 8, he taught me that A squared plus B squared equals C squared, I think." Megatron has no choice but to resort to the mind probe. Soundwave says her mind is empty. Megatron says that's impossible. Really? Have you met her? It turns out that's not the problem. For once, her machines are glitchy around me thing turns out to be useful. Meanwhile, Powerglide finds the base and is like, "That's no moon." Megatron is in shock. Powerglide is blocked by a force field but keeps on coming. Meanwhile, the goons have found a solution. They're going to hold the electrodes in place. This time, the mind probe should work. Or she'll end up like Mel Brooks in the Muppet movie. Or she would, but the moment Megatron pulls the lever, he fries his own troops. Then one of his other goons informs him that Powerglide is getting closer. Megatron gloats that Powerglide will never make it through. Astoria escapes and overhears this. She sees that the force field thing could be short-circuited by metal, so she throws her necklace at it. Then she reveals that it had the only remaining copy of the mystery formula. The stunt destroys not only the force field projector, but the anti-gravity device keeping the station afloat. Powerglide flies in and says, "Why the fuck did you do that?" She says, "To save you." They start to argue over who was supposed to save who, and then Astoria falls to her death. No, Powerglide saves her, and then gives her a parachute so she can escape. She asks, "How are you going to get out?" He says, "Don't worry, I have a plan." So she says, "Fine, then I'm staying here to help." Powerglide adjusts the control panel so he can steer, but it doesn't work. He blames her, and I'm with him given Astoria's glitchiness with machines. She's helped enough. He finally gets it working, and she wants to know why the ship is still going down. He says he's adjusted things so it will crash land on the Decepticons' undersea base. Meanwhile, the Decepticons are like, any plan you can walk away from intact is a good one. When the ship going down is a P, not an NP. Then whammo! The good news is the Decepticons have a pool now. The bad news is it takes up the whole house. Powerglide and Astoria say their goodbyes. They say they'll meet again. The guys kid Powerglide about being in love, and he threatens to blow them all to hell. What were we supposed to learn from all this? I think these two kids sum it up nicely. They're riding their bikes, it's dark, they get pulled over by Red Alert. He tells them if they're going to go bike riding at night to wear bright clothing and use reflectors. What's that got to do with anything? I have no fucking clue.
No!
How many possibilities do we have left?
I don't know. There were a lot of toy-based cartoons back in the 80s. Let's say this Twinkie represents the normal amount of cartoons based on toys at any given time. Judging by an 80s sample, it'd be a Twinkie 35 feet long, weighing approximately 600 pounds.
That's a big Twinkie.
I take it that means we're watching the real Ghostbusters? Not just any episode of Real Ghostbusters. One of the few episodes to creep me out as a wee lad. Farmer, come home. Our story begins with the guys in hot pursuit of some poltergeists. Peter whispers to Ray that at least being on the case has kept them out of the firehouse while their surprise for Winston was being worked on. Winston is confused as to why the poltergeists are doing random shit. Shouldn't they be losing power the further they get from their focal point? Egon says, "I'm glad someone was paying attention. Normally that's true, but sometimes they can find themselves an external power supply." He looks at his PKE meter and it tells them to go that-a-way. In order to make the turn, Ray's gotta drive like Elwood Blues. Garfield Venkman complains, "A little more warning next time." Egon says, "Right." Peter says, "Thank you." Then Egon complains they're about to miss their turn. I guess he's possessed by the ghost of Bud Abbott. They reach the point where Egon's Ecto GPS says their problem should be located. I don't know why they're bothering. They're a private company, and it's not like the owners of the building where the ghosts are hanging out as a client. Winston wants to know where the ghost went. No one knows. Then a huge crowd of people comes running toward them. That's their big clue. It's nice to know Egon got that PhD in engineering to invent a state the obvious machine. They head towards the building the ghosts are in, and they miss a few obvious specters. It makes me think they took ghost busting lessons from Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. They don't even realize they're in the right place until they get attacked by hundreds of Oscar the Grouches. The ghosts hop out of their trash cans and turn into a hurricane. This pig-faced guy shows up and commands the winds to stack the trash cans. Egon reminds them that poltergeists can't hurt people. The same is not true of trash cans. The trash cans begin to fall. Venkman shoots one of them and it explodes, raining trash down on them. The winds scoop up the Ghostbusters and the ghosts retreat into the sewers. Louis Anderson follows them. True to Egon's word, the poltergeists don't hurt them. They just put them down on the roof. Winston says it couldn't possibly get any worse. At which point, it starts raining. On the drive home, Egon is confused as to why that just happened. Poltergeists shouldn't be that powerful. Ray says you're the one who said they could have found an outside power supply. Or maybe Porky Pig was doing everything and feeding off the little guys for a little extra juice. Egon is amazed. He says, that would explain it, but here's what's really interesting. This episode bothered to remember that in the movie you were almost as smart as I am, and what you lacked in intellect you made up for in social skills. Most episodes of this series forget this. Winston is annoyed that they're taking the long way home. But I can forgive him for this, considering the opening implies that they've been hunting this thing for hours. He probably has to pee. Ray whispers to Peter, "Do you think our surprise is ready?" Peter says there's only one way to find out. Winston goes into the firehouse first. It's dark. He calls out for Janine and Slimer, but they're not there. He's about to shout, "Where is everybody?" when the lights come on and Slimer flies in, putting a birthday hat on his head. That's right, it's the old surprise birthday trope. This one never made any sense to me. I was a file clerk and unofficial morale officer at an office for years. Part of my job was to handle birthday parties. And in all that time, no one ever forgot their own fucking birthday. The only time I pulled off a true surprise party was when I intentionally did it a week early. What I'm saying is, Winston would have to be dumb to be surprised. But he does say that would explain why they took the long way home, which in turn explained the yellow stain on his jumpsuit. Janine goes back to get the blueberry sponge cake she spent the whole day working on. You know, when she was supposed to be answering those zillions of phone calls about the poltergeists. Great job keeping your priorities straight there, Janine. Slimer flies in and eats the cake. No, I don't mean a big handful. I mean the whole cake, including the candles, which were lit in one bite.
He's worse than you.
They get mad at him. Winston claims to be on a diet so he can at least pretend not to be that upset. But Peter is more than enraged enough for the both of them. The guys tell him to lay off the spud, but Venkman's gonna Venkman. He tells them, "Why don't you do us all a favor and get the hell out of here?" Slimer flies off in shame. Ray says you've hurt Slimer's feelings. Peter says, "Ghosts don't have feelings." Ray says, "I'm not so sure about that." Venkman says, "Even if they do, they're dead, so what the fuck does it matter?" While the guys are sleeping, Slimer flies in and says his goodbyes. He knows they didn't hear him, so he leaves a note. Janine comes back for her early morning shift and finds it. She alerts the guys. Peter says, "Well, if that's the problem, I'm going back to bed." She reads the note. Slimer said, "No one likes him. He's always fucking things up no matter how hard he tries. Maybe Peter's right. You should go away and stop trying. It's better for everyone that way." Winston, Egon, and Ray go out into the rainy night to search for Slimer. Janine asks Peter why he's not going with them. He says, "When have I ever cared about Slimer? I'm finally free of the bastard. Woohoo!" Meanwhile, Slimer is flying around town and is tempted to rob a candy store. He gets flashbacks to Peter yelling at him and decides not to. So he joins a caravan of homeless ghosts instead. Back at the firehouse, Janine catches Peter sneaking out. She accuses him of caring about Slimer. He says, "Nah, I'm just going for a walk." She says, "In the rain, with a proton pack." He nods. Janine says, "Look, if you find him, will you tell him I miss him?" Look, we know Slimer watches Saturday morning cartoons, but he must not have been paying attention during those PSAs. Because stranger danger or not, he just follows those hobo ghosts. Even when they're going into an abandoned building. They don't want children going into abandoned buildings because they could be hurt or killed. So, ghosts are already dead. Good point, but should the tenement be glowing? That depends. Is it Cher's house? I don't think so. Cut to the guys looking all over hell for Slimer. Eventually, Egon, Ray, and Winston meet under a bridge to compare notes. Egon remembers that poltergeist they fought earlier. He says any ghost in the city is a potential food source for Lardass Hogan. This makes them extra worried about Slimer, but the PKE meter is unable to find him because the poltergeist has grown so powerful he's blanketing the city with energy. They're effectively sensor blind. The more it feeds, the more powerful it gets. It's reaching critical mass. Egon says just one ghost could make the difference between something they have a slim chance of catching and the apocalypse. Right before the commercial break, we see Slimer being invited to join the ghost party. Mr. Criozzo starts laughing. Venkman's search isn't going so well. He stumbles across more homeless ghosts and, having no other leads, decides to follow them. Hungry Hippo starts picking ghosts to go frighten people. He asks Slimer to do something scary. He fails his test. He wants to help train Slimer, but they don't have enough time to go on an out-of-town retreat. Meanwhile, at the Friends Fountain, Egon asks Ray, why isn't he looking for Slimer? He says, "I am, sorta. If you run out of places to look for someone, stay in one place. Eventually, everyone you know will come to you." Right before Egon's about to ask if the writers forgot Ray was supposed to be smart again, Ray's second grade teacher shows up. This simple coincidence causes Egon to have a nervous breakdown. The Pigman wants to re-educate Slimer. They see these two people coming down the street. The overfed hobbit shows him how it's done. Slimer gets the point. He's supposed to scare the shit out of the next person who comes along. Venkman is looking for Slimer. He turns the corner. Slimer charges right at him. Just like old times. Well, if by old times you mean the Sedgwick Hotel. Slimer flies off. Venkman gets on his walkie-talkie and calls the guys. He points them to a burned-out building. Inside, Slimer sees Fat Bastard unbutton his shirt. He's got a second mouth on his stomach. He tells all the ghosts to get in my belly. Most of them go voluntarily. Slimer realizes what he thought was Pleasure Island for dead people was more like Jonestown. And he's always been a bigger fan of Ecto Cooler than Purplesaurus Rex. Egon says it's too late. All the ghosts have merged into a giant Ecto Souffle. Peter says we'll just have to go in there and bust that bad boy. Wait a minute. If it's Winston's birthday, why am I the one getting the presents? Slimer gets caught in the bull charge of ghosts getting eaten by the big guy. The Ghostbusters are about to go in, guns blazing, when they see Slimer struggling to get out. This next part is rather clever. The whole reason Egon wanted Slimer around in the first place was so that he could study him and get a better understanding of all ghosts. So it made sense that he would memorize Slimer's frequency and make it so that if they turned just a few knobs on their proton packs, they might be able to fish him out. It works, but Slimer doesn't look so good. Sort of like, a piece of ghost vomit that is itself about to puke. But hey, Dom DeLuise doesn't look so good either, and he's pissed. He grabs their proton packs with his telekinesis, then starts shooting at them with his laser eyes. This starts a fire. Then he ties the guys up with transformed floorboards. Blubberbutt thinks he's won, but he didn't count on one thing. Slimer. Slimer grabs a proton pack and shoots the floor. This forces Tubbo to drop the guys. They go get their proton packs, and it's a simple zap and trap like every other ghost they've ever caught. Not exactly. A ghost trap works best with one ghost, one trap. If the ghost is weaker, they can double or triple up a la the Scoleri brothers, but this ghost is a gestalt of thousands of ghosts. The trap is overloaded. They've got to rush it past the containment unit or it's going to be a bigger bomb than Cutthroat Island. They tell Slimer he can come home as they rush to the door. The containment unit must run on Windows 11 because it almost can't process that many ghosts at once. It manages, but only by a hair. They go upstairs and have a second party. Slimer eats the whole cake again. But they were smart this time. They made a second cake. The one that looks like it was made of chocolate and dog food was just for Slimer. Peter denies that he set this up because he missed Slimer. And Ray says that's good because I taught Slimer a new trick. And it's sort of implied that he taught Slimer to puke on demand. And that's it. That's the episode.
Yes!
This projection is running long. I want some lunch.
Who wants pizza?
Ooh, me. He sounds like a Ninja Turtle. Which makes it the perfect cartoon to end our trilogy on. Don't you think?
Cowabunga!
Our story begins with Splinter taking a nap. Seriously? In his defense, he's recovering from a battle with Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady in the previous episode. Unlike most of the later seasons, in the first 2 years, continuity mattered. All of Season 1 can either be viewed as 5 individual episodes or as a single TV movie. The Turtles are pissed. They want revenge on Shredder, not just for beating Splinter, but for trapping him in a rat form way back when. Like the teenage boys they are, they exchange adolescent revenge fantasies. Raph wins by suggesting they get some mutagen and turn Shredder into a hamster. Alas, he's all bark and no bite. Wait, do hamsters bark? The Turtles go looking for the Technodrome. It's not all that far away. Shredder and Krang have taken their mobile fortress out for a Sunday drive. They get to this point under this old mansion. Shredder goes to the surface. He has this box of mini drones which he releases to go find the MacGuffin of the week. Meanwhile, at the Acme Corporation, this mad scientist is putting a rat in a maze to test out his latest invention. A literal better mousetrap. Or rather, a mouse-killing robot. One that doesn't let anything stop it from getting its prey. Even walls. It eats them like me at a ho-ho factory. The CEO of the company says, yeah, it works and is more effective than the traps you'd get at a Dollar Tree, but what's the point if you won't have a fucking house when you're done? This episode of Shark Tank only has one judge, Because you only need one guy to see how dumb Baxter's idea is. Well, if your goal is to sell consumer goods, Shredder's probe sees this and bing pot! Shredder sees its value. Baxter gets thrown out of the building and is about to proceed to the next pest control company in the phone book when Shredder offers him a job. He'd get a lab and all the equipment he could possibly need. Look, Baxter! I can see how this would be tempting, but don't you think you should hold out for, I don't know, healthcare, a salary, profit share from your Mausers, dental, a 401k? It's the only way to be sure your employer won't backstab you and turn you into a mutant fly. It happens to guys who work at Walmart all the time. The turtles are still moping in the sewers while looking for the Technodrome. They whine that every second they don't find it is another second Splinter has to remain a rat. Wah, wah. Baxter goes to Shredder's place and he thinks it's a shithole. Shredder says that Apple and Microsoft started in garages. Baxter says he thought Shredder was a big businessman. Shredder backs up his claims of resources when a transport module carrying Bebop, Rocksteady, and a bunch of equipment arrives. Shredder says, I was going to wait to see what you needed before I did the remodeling, but use this stuff to build the master control. Baxter asks why his RC device wouldn't be up to the task. Shredder says that would work for 1 or 2 Mousers, sure, but we're going to be making hundreds, if not thousands. By this time tomorrow, every rat in New York City is gonna be dead. The turtles are still scouring the sewers for the Technodrome. Don, the smart one, says that if they can't find it in the sewers, it's probably on the surface. Mikey, the perpetual idiot, says it's always been underground before, and if it were on the surface, people would see it, and April would have called us by now. Leo says anything is worth a shot. Raph says they don't even know where they are, so they should probably surface anyway. He lifts up a manhole cover and they're right on the subway. Literally. And for once the trains are on time, so they end up diving right back into the sewers. Back at the mansion, Shredder is figuring out how to 3D print Mousers. Krang calls. Shredder's a tactical genius, so he leaves Bebop and Rocksteady in charge of supervising production while he goes to see Krang. Rain Man wants to know what the deal with the Mousers. It's been 3 episodes and he still hasn't come through on his promise to build a robot body. Shredder says, I'll get to your robot body after I kill the turtles. I need the Mousers to do that. Krang says, if I had a body, I could kill every living thing on the planet. Turtles included. And, well, he's not wrong. Shredder says, I spotted the turtles first. I should be the one to kill them. Krang says, fine. Mouse killing robots, it is. But when this plan fails, and it will, you'll come begging me for help, and I'll say, Sake, go help yourself. The first 12 Mousers are done. Shredder is like a kid at Christmas. He sends them out to kill Splinter before he's even read the instruction manual. He thinks he's already won. And maybe he's right. The turtles are still lost in the sewer and they haven't found the Technodrome. Raph falls off the pipe they're all climbing. He grabs hold of the one under it, but it breaks, spraying him with water. So the guys decide to go back home and change into fresh bandanas? April is there taking care of Splinter. He wakes up. She says since he's feeling better, she's gotta go to work. She's an evening and nightly news reporter and all that. He says, yeah, hanging out with us has totally fucked up your life, hasn't it? She says, kinda, but not really. I'll be back. Splinter starts meditating. The Mousers break into the lair. He's not fully recovered from the battle last episode, and he's got another one on his hands. Paws. He's not doing too badly, but he gets overwhelmed. Luckily, the guys show up. Donnie looks at the smashed robot parts and notices Baxter Stockman Inventions Inc. stamped on the feet. All they have is a name. Splinter says the internet isn't a thing yet, but reporters often have access to information the masses don't. Let's ask April for help. She owes us. Back at the Technodrome, Shredder is mad that the 12 Mousers are down for the count. Then he realizes in the time it took them to destroy 12 Mousers, he's built 1,200 more, so he's good. April is talking to herself as she gets out of the shower. Hey, I guess she does own more than one outfit. That purple robe marks one of the rare instances in seasons 1 through 8 where she's not wearing her iconic yellow jumpsuit. She gets a knock at the door. It's the Turtles. She's like, not tonight. The guys explain what they want and that they'll be out of her hair by the time Wheel of Fortune comes on. April offers Splinter a chance to rest while she goes to Google Baxter. She finds the information they need but curses her slow 80s printer. All she wants to do is get the guys out of there, change back into her PJs, curl up in bed, and watch Alf. One problem with that, though. During all that, Mikey raided the fridge. He found it was full of frozen pizzas. He's never heard of a microwave before, so he tries to eat it. He notices directions on the box and... I didn't know cooking with Jess was a thing in 1987. Ha ha. Very funny. Donatello messes around with April's answering machine. Remember those? Her boss called wondering why she missed work. Raphael tries to figure out how bubble bath works using the Paddington method. Leonardo plays darts with paintings on the wall. So in 5 minutes, the Turtles have almost gotten April fired, flooded the apartment, wrecked the walls, and started a small fire. April gives them the information she found on Baxter and says, hey, do me a favor and go to his place to cook dinner. Speaking of Baxter, he's finishing up his job for Shredder and says, I'm gonna go. Shredder's like, no, stay. See what this was all about. Baxter's like, nah, Star Trek The Next Generation is starting in 45 minutes and I forgot to set my VCR. Shredder's like, okay, whatever. Once Baxter gets to his van, Shredder whispers to his foot soldiers, it's time to do that old he knows too much bit. The Turtles try to figure out why April is so mad at them while they walk to Baxter's. Then they complain they're never going to get there at the rate they're going. They'd better. There's only 9 minutes left in this cartoon. Shredder has thousands of Mousers, but he makes a small tactical error. He splits them up among 6 targets. The Turtles, April, and Splinter. It might be a dumb move, but the Mousers have no choice but to obey their orders. You have Isaac Asimov to blame for that. The foot soldiers arrive at Baxter's and are about to off him when the Turtles show up. Then we get another quip-filled fight scene. Once they rescue Baxter, they tie him to a lamppost and interrogate him. He tells them most of what they want to know. A lot of it they already suspected. That he's working for Shredder, there are thousands of Mousers, with more coming by the minute. He won't tell them where Shredder is. Well, until Raph threatens him with a sigh. Then he spills faster than Tom Holland at a Marvel press conference. base is too far away, so the turtles decide to steal Baxter's van. Donatello is jealous of all the gizmos in the back.
No going cars, no going cars, no going cars.
Oh, be quiet, you! Then he realizes the first batch of Mousers found Master Splinter pretty quick. He couldn't even deal with 12 of them. How's he gonna deal with 1,200? They should go rescue him. At the same time, he realizes the threat posed by the Master Control. This stresses him out so much that it turns his headband orange. The Turtles are heroes, so they put all concern for the general public aside to go rescue Splinter and April. She's just cleaning up from the Turtles' last visit when the Mousers attack. She and Splinter do a rather kick-ass job, all things considered. They're just overwhelmed. And then the boys show up to save the day. But the Mousers have eaten all the building's support beams. It starts coming down. The building across the street is under renovation, so they leap onto the ropes that are attached to it and swing to safety. Once they get back to the ground, it's time to hunt Shredder. Donatello says give him 5 minutes and he can use the gizmos in the back of Baxter's van to build something to hijack the Mousers, provided someone else takes out the Master Control. Leo, Raph, and Mikey decide to go in there and begin to think that one of them would have a better chance of getting in than all three. Wait a minute, I thought they were ninjas. Shouldn't they be able to... never mind. Mikey gets in and starts looking for the Master Control, but gets caught by Shredder. Shredder checks the outside security camera and finds his other 5 targets are out there, so he sends the Mousers to attack. Donnie says his machine should be working as long as Mikey did his job. Outside the theme song, Mikey's incompetence hasn't been established yet, so he has no way of knowing that he was always destined to be swamped with Mousers. Mikey is tied up. He sees no way out until these tentacles untie him. That's right, in these early episodes, Krang and Shredder aren't quite so buddy-buddy. Big Brain needs Shredder's plan to fail in order to get what he wants. The best way to ensure that happens is to free Mikey. Krang tells him everything he needs to know to beat Shredder. Mikey goes charging in there. Shredder starts blasting him, but Mikey's jumping around like a maniac. Shredder hits the Mouser control machine by accident. Don takes control of the Mousers. He sends them to attack the old building. Shredder flees to the Technodrome. The mansion sinks into the ground. They dig Mikey out of the rubble, but he pretends to be dead to annoy everyone. On the ride home, the Turtles decide to steal Baxter's van and turn it into a means of tracking the Technodrome. Mikey tells them about Krang. In spite of sitting right next to Raph, Raph is sitting behind him making fun of him, as Donatello. The Turtles drive into the night, and that's it. That's the episode.
Yes!
We should probably talk about what we're going to do next time.
Okay, let's do another off that list of Christmas present movie picks. How about Mystery Alaska?
That could depend on when this episode gets finished. We might have to go right into our Christmas episode. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. To see this channel grow and get your name on the credits, visit patreon.com/PerryEraFilms and become a patron today. Give us enough money and just might let you have a say in some of the movies we watch in the 2022-23 season.